Welcome back to the Dr. G Aspie Show. I'm Dr. G. I have a very special guest I'm very excited about. It's Dr. Terri James. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
I have parents come to me very often asking, what are the components of a good evaluation? How do I get an evaluation? How do I know if it's good or not? Well, Dr. James can answer some of these questions for us today. She's an awesome psychologist, moved here from Manhattan. She's here in Charlotte at Southeast Psych. And can you give us a quick little rundown? What's your favorite food?
Pasta?
Pasta. Are you Italian?
No.
No.
I just like pasta.
And where do you like to go for vacation?
I like the beach.
The beach. One of your favorite books?
Harry Potter series?
Wow, score. Harry Potter. Love it. All right. Well, we were talking earlier before we came on air that there are some specific characteristics you like to see in an evaluation for a kid or a family that's looking at Asperger's or autism spectrum. And we'll go through those criteria, but will what we discussed today still apply given that the term Asperger's is going away from the DSM-5?
Right. Well, the term Asperger's is going away, but it will be under the category of autism spectrum disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't change the way we do our evaluation. It just changes the final diagnosis.
Got it. Well, Dr. James, what do you see as the 5 main components of a good evaluation?
Developmental history, behavior rating scales, intelligence assessment, social judgment assessment, and finally clinical observations and child interview.
Child interview, that's my favorite. Well, tell us a little bit about the first part, developmental history. What goes into that?
Developmental history is done with the parents. This is where we get information on the child's early childhood. We're looking at things like communication, social reciprocity.
Reciprocity?
Meaning, did they play nicely? Did they give and take? When you smiled at your baby, did they smile back? When you gave them a toy, did they play with it? Did they share with other children, as is developmentally appropriate for that age?
Sure, got it.
We're looking at that early history to see if they had communication or cognitive delays, and to get a sense of how they were fitting in.
I also like to interview or ask about the relatives. Is there somebody else in the family who's potentially on the spectrum, so I get some of that genetic info?
Right. Siblings also.
Yes, siblings, absolutely. And the second area was behavior ratings, I believe?
Right, and we have some standardized behavior ratings, and these break down the areas that we're looking at specifically for Asperger's and also more generally. So the Asperger scale is looking at that specific criteria for Asperger's diagnosis. And the Basque form is looking at more general behavioral, but we, looking at Asperger's, are looking for specific scales. Atypicality, social skills, adaptability, communication.
And the atypicality is kids who are sort of outside the box.
Right, just that little odd behavior, either socially or behaviorally.
Got it. So we've got developmental history, we've got behavior checklist, and then third is intelligence.
Intelligence, because for Asperger's, a child needs to have at least average intelligence. There is that stereotype that these children are extremely gifted.
Right.
Some of them are, but for diagnostic criteria, they just need to be of average intelligence. And for that, most people use the Wechsler scales. That's what's traditionally known as IQ. Other scales are also available, things like the Stanford-Binet.
And average IQ falls between 90 and 110, with 100 right there in the middle. Cool. The fourth area is social judgment.
Some of this we get from the parent interviews. Some of this we get from the behavioral forms. There's also some subtests on a test called the NEPSI, which allows us to measure the child's ability to read facial expressions, social innuendos. Can they take another person's point of view? Right.
NEPSY. NEPSI. Got it. And the final area, my favorite part, is the child interview, observations. Tell us a little bit about that.
We want to speak to the child and see how they're interacting with us, also what they're reporting about their environment. There's also a test called the ADOS, ADOS, which is a standardized observation and behavioral assessment, which lets us measure how that child is communicating, their eye contact, their level, again, of social reciprocity, helps us either rule in or rule out Asperger's and autism.
Got it. So the 5 areas are developmental history, behavior ratings, intelligence, social judgment, and then the child observation interview info.
Right, and those are the things you want to look for in an assessment so that you make sure that you're covering all the areas you need for diagnostic criteria.
Fantastic. So parents, now you know what to look for in evaluation, and that evaluation addresses the criteria of Asperger's currently, which it'll be different in the DSM-5 subtly.
Right.
And those criteria are impairment in social interaction, restricted patterns of behavior or interest, not OCD, that's something different. And that there's no impairment in language, and that there's an impairment in social functioning. And I also throw in the criteria that this is impairing their lives, that they're feeling different, but that's some of what I do. That's not necessarily the DSM.
Well, I think that that's an important point, though, is that assessment is not an exact science, and that there is some of that clinical sense and clinical judgment, which is why it's very important for parents to find someone who's specifically trained in working with this population.
Got it. Parents, if you're looking for a good evaluation, you can always contact Autism Speaks or local autism chapters. I recommend that you contact pediatricians in your town, find the best pediatricians. They can point you to somebody like the awesome Dr. Terri James to complete an evaluation, finding out if your child's on the spectrum or not. And also, these evaluations can drive intervention as well.
And that's really the most important point, is
That's
that
right.
the diagnosis is one part of it, but it's about the recommendations and where you go forward in terms of helping that child and helping your family.
Excellent. Terri James, you're on. High five. Everybody, thanks for tuning in, but before we go, we're going to play a little game that I like to call
Say That's Dino!
In my hand, I have the name of a dinosaur. And not that this is going to help you, but it was 11 feet long, it weighed 110 pounds, and it kind of stood upright and was fast and ate basically everything. I'm going to show you the name of this dinosaur for the lovely audience, and you must quickly say the name accurately of the dinosaur.
Got it.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Go.
Frank Gaskill.
Actually, that's incorrect. It's pronounced Archaeornithomimus.
That was so close.
Yes. Well played, Dr. James.
Thank you,
Nobody's
Dr.
ever done that.
Gaskill.
Everyone, thanks a lot for tuning in to the Dr. G Aspie Show, where Asperger's is awesome.